heart of this very issue. But I want to go back to what you said earlier about the resolution. Some would say that, look, when you look at this resolution, it's just item 2, which talks about the all impeachment proceedings initiated against the governor of Rivers State House of Assembly. Against the governor of Rivers State by the Rivers State House of Assembly should be dropped immediately. Now, that's the only thing that seems to be beneficial to the governor. For you, when you look at this resolution, is it a win-win situation for all parties?
I think it's a win-win situation for all parties because you had a status quo before and you had a breach of that status quo. What the resolution is saying is that let's get back to the status quo. And what was the status quo before? You had a House of Assembly that was working on its own, and you had the governor. And so if the two parts of the, or let's say the two arms, the third arm is the judiciary, obviously, and there was some challenge there. I think the governor tried to do one or two things with some person in the judiciary. But if you can have the two arms of government, the legislature and the executive, going back to the status quo, then it benefits everybody. You got to understand something there. Wike, Nyesom Wike is in Abuja. Nyesom Wike, right now, yeah, he might be pulling the strings, but at the end of the day, the governor is in charge in his state. So if I were in Nyesom Wike, what I would do is I would abide by that agreement. If I were the governor, I would abide by the agreement. And then you can pick up the mantle, you can pick up the gauntlet and then go back to war again in 2027 when there is another election around the corner. But to be in a state of perpetual electioneering, perpetual crisis for 4 years, it's not going to be in the interest of both the governor and Nyesom Wike as well as the people of Rivers State. There has to be a resolution of that crisis.
But it would seem as though this intervention only resolves one half of the issue. And when you consider that the State Assembly is still in crisis mode and the court cases, the PDP is saying that they are going to institute a case against those 27 defecting lawmakers. So it doesn't look like this issue has actually been resolved.
Well, here's the thing, what the agreement said is that all cases that were filed by all the people, all the parties to the agreement, and in this case, all the parties to the agreement are the governor, the minister of the FCT, and then the House of Assembly members. In Rivers State, the governor is statutorily the head of the party. If you look at that, it's just like, for instance, now in Nigeria, in the All Progressive Congress, the president of Nigeria is the head of the party. It doesn't matter if somebody elsewhere is masquerading as maybe national leader, or maybe you have a titular role as chairman. Once you have a president in place, he is the head of the party nationwide. The same thing in the state. Once you have a governor of the party in place, then he becomes the head of that party. So if the governor is willing, then the governor can put pressure to bear on the state PDP to withdraw all cases in court. The only way that the state is going to go, that the state PDP is going to want to continue to go to court, is if the governor is not in league with them. And that's what I've said, that if you look at the agreement, it goes back to the status quo. It's in the governor's best interest, as well as the minister of the FCT, to reach a situation whereby they go back to the status quo, and then if they cannot find any permanent solution, then they can, let's say, reignite this war in 2027. But to go for 4 years in a state of crisis, in a state of electionary mode, it's not going to be good for the mental health of both people involved, and it's not also going to be good for the development of the state.
What about the PDP at the national level, if they decide to take this particular case to court, especially against the 27 defecting lawmakers?
Yeah, but that's the thing, if you have the PDP at the national level, I mean, the PDP at the national level on its own, they are not going to go to court. They have to go to court through the PDP at the state level. So you can't have, for instance, now, you can't have the PDP at the national level taking the lawmakers to court. They're not going to have the loci. So in law, you have something called the local standard. So they do not have the loci. They have to go through the state chapter of the party. And if the state chapter of the party is saying, okay, we're not going to go to court, we're going to withdraw this case from court, then, there's nothing that the national PDP can do. Look, I'm going to say this here. The PDP ought to have stepped in even before the president stepped in. If I were the PDP national chairman, I mean, I would have convened maybe like an elders council or a national working committee council to go to River State to try to bring some peace. I mean, if you look at River State is surrounded by PDP states. You know, to one side you've got Bayelsa, who has a PDP governor, and then you also have Akwa Ibom, which has a PDP governor. These states, their governors, even if the PDP on its own at the national level or the state level did not intervene, they could have intervened. Because they failed to intervene, nature abhors a vacuum. The president has stepped in. So at the end of the day, what we want is peace. And then if the peace can hold until the next election, and then after that, you see, if you look at history, look at Lagos State, the current president had an issue with Ambody, who was a governor that he brought. But he did not try to, shorten the governor's tenure. He allowed the governor finish his tenure. And then when it was time for re-election, he ensured with the party in the state that the governor did not come back. That is what they have to do. Wait until 2027 and then they can flex their muscles then.
You know, people have asked or talked about the Wike factor within the PDP and why it's difficult for the PDP to address. Almost seeming as though, because he has not left the party. He hasn't said he has left or he has moved to any other party. It's almost as though one person is now bigger than the entire party. What exactly is going on in that particular regard? Why is it difficult for the PDP to address the Wike factor in the party?
Well, you have to understand, for the PDP, Wike is like a bull in a china shop. He's like a bull in a china shop. You're probably not going to like what I'm going to say about Nyesom Wike. Nyesom Wike is an egomaniac. You know, if you look at his personality, you know, he's very driven by ego, not by conscience. And people like that, you got to be careful. You cannot just descend to their level and then begin to fight them like that. No, you've got to use wisdom, you've got to use strategy, you've got to use tactics. So what is happening is that the man has not said that he has left the party or is going to, he's leaving the party. The PDP has to wait for him to make a stand, to take a stand. If he leaves, then okay, good riddance. If he decides to stay in the party and doesn't leave the party, then they have to find a way to endure him, because what cannot be avoided must be endured. If you go on a frontal attack with him, you know, he has a lot of residual power in River State to, just bring about some crisis. People like Wike are not very good builders, but they are very good destroyers. You got to understand that. I'm going to say that one more time. People like Wike are not very good builders. They're very good destroyers. So when you know that that's the case, then you got to be careful. What can the man do? He's no longer governor. You know, Wike does not have a history of being loyal to people who are no longer in the position to help him politically. If you look at Wike, he was with Amechi, and then when he got what he wanted from Amechi, he ditched Amechi. And then he became in bed with Dame Pesha Jonathan. When he got what he wanted, despite their public protestations that it's not true, he actually ditched that relationship. So by the time Wike has gotten what he wants from, President Bola Tinubu, he's going to do the same thing, because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Wike is somebody that you manage until you put him very carefully and tactically in a position whereby he can do the least damage.
If I may quickly comment, you are saying that Wike is not a good builder.